I don't know about you, but for me, 2020 has been a bit of a stressful year. So I thought I'd share with you some of the things that I do every day to manage stress and anxiety. But in this video, I'm also going to explain a way of thinking about stress that can transform stress from something that is, just something bad that happens to you into something that you can channel to be more productive and also help you feel calmer. So in this video, you're going to learn 10 daily habits to reduce stress and anxiety. And don't worry, I'm not going to tell you to meditate. This video is sponsored by BetterHelp, where you can get a professional licensed counselor who can personally coach you through anxiety and stress for around $65 a week. So check out the link in the description for 10% off your first month. So I've been reading the Little House on the Prairie books to my daughter, and in book 3, we're reading a story about Almanzo and his farming family in the 1800s. And they survived off of what they grew. And in one of the stories, right before the 4th of July, they've got their corn starting to sprout in the fields, and the weather starts to get weird. So it seems like it's going to freeze. So before they go to bed, the parents start to worry a little bit about the crops, and they don't go to sleep. They stay up and they watch the temperature. And sure enough, it does start to freeze. So they get all the kids out of bed in the middle of the night, and the only way to save the corn is to pour water on each of these tiny little stalks before the sun comes up. And if they don't, their corn's going to freeze and they'll have no harvest that year. So every member of the family anxiously runs through the night, hand watering each little corn sprout in their acres and acres of fields. And by the time the sun rose, they'd managed to save most of their crop. They were exhausted, but they were also content. And after they did the rest of their morning chores, they were able to sit back and relax and appreciate the hard work that they'd done. So the stress response is your body's activating response. When you sense a threat, in Almanzo's case, this was their livelihood about to be destroyed, your body turns on this sympathetic response. It sends out some adrenaline to spur you into action. It heightens your breathing and your heart rate to prep you for performance. And Almanzo and his family, they used their stress response to spur them on. The worry helped them to be vigilant, to not sleep, to take this, impressive physical action. And this stress response potentially saved them from complete crop failure. So anxiety isn't just something bad that happens to you, it serves a function. But our modern language confuses anxiety with anxiety disorder, and it's given this negative connotation to the word anxiety. But anxiety isn't out to get you, it's your body and mind's performance mode. So the stress or the anxiety response can help you have more energy and get more done, and then it'll naturally resolve if you know how to channel it. So I'm going to teach you some daily habits you can use to naturally resolve your anxiety. When you think of anxiety as a motivating energy to resolve problems, anxiety can become a powerful tool instead of just something bad that happens to you that you want to avoid. And even if you do have an anxiety disorder, these tools will help you reduce your stress levels and get healthier. So let's talk about a modern problem that we all have. One of the reasons that so many people struggle with stress and anxiety is that we face a few modern problems that make it a lot harder for us to deal with stress than Almanzo and his family back in the 1800s. Because our anciently evolved brain isn't so good at dealing with modern stressors, we all need to take an intentional approach to managing anxiety. So the first problem that many of us face is that so many of our modern stressors are connected to problems that we can't solve physically. So in Almanzo's case, when they were worried, they got that jolt of adrenaline and cortisol, and they were able to use that physical energy to solve a physical problem. They didn't feel stressed afterwards because they burned off the adrenaline and cortisol when they were running around solving the problem. So for many of us, our modern stressors are things like deadlines and assignments, traffic noise, and our crops are sitting at a computer instead of planting corn. So if I'm stressed about a problem at work, I may not sleep, and I might even solve that problem, but the adrenaline and the cortisol stay in my system until I physically burn them off. So this is where exercise becomes clutch. Daily exercise is an essential part of reducing pent-up anxiety. 5 minutes of exercise has been shown to reduce cortisol and adrenaline levels. Exercise can decrease overall levels of tension, it can elevate your mood, it can improve your sleep, and it can improve your self-esteem. So aerobic exercise, where you're breathing really hard, that tends to be the most effective type of exercise at reducing stress. But really, any kind of movement is helpful. So going for a walk or a bike ride, or even just doing like wall sits or stretching for a minute in your office, those can all be helpful. So the first thing I'm going to encourage you to do is just find a way to add some movement to your day. Now let's talk about your morning routine. How you start your day is going to set the tone for your entire day. So if you're like many people, the first thing you do makes your anxiety worse. So this is what it looks like for a lot of people. You're tired because you went to bed a little bit late, and the first thing you do is start scrolling through your phone, you look at social media or the news, and then you drink some caffeine. Now, caffeine is the most widely used psychoactive drug in the world. It crosses the blood-brain barrier in seconds, and it makes you feel more alert by reducing adenosine. But adenosine is a relaxation chemical in your brain. Caffeine can also increase adrenaline, and it can make you feel more irritable, more anxious, and more agitated. Now, you can develop a tolerance to the alerting effects of caffeine, meaning you're going to need more coffee the next time to feel alert, but you don't develop a tolerance to the anxiety effects of caffeine. So caffeine use can impact your sleep and your anxiety for up to 48 hours. And caffeine has been shown to contribute to anxiety and depressive disorders. So if you're serious about decreasing your anxiety, try getting caffeine out of your system for at least 3 days and see how that impacts you. I personally don't use caffeine because of the impact it has on my anxiety levels. If you feel tired, one thing you could try is getting more sleep. Sleep helps your brain function better, which makes it so you can better solve problems and resolve situations that bring you anxiety. So if the idea of making these changes seems overwhelming, I'm just going to encourage you to start slowly. Just make one little change every month. There is no quick and easy fix for anxiety. Like if you're looking for some magical cure, you'll have to check some other channel because that's not what I'm selling. But you can drastically reduce your anxiety by making small and sustainable changes. Okay, so now let's talk about your media consumption. So our anciently evolved brain is much better adapted to the world of Little House on the Prairie than it is to our modern media. Almanzo and Laura may have gotten a newspaper once a week or heard the news from town occasionally, but that news was often about local events. The news was brief and infrequent and actionable. So stress about the news could be resolved by taking action. So for example, if a couple in town got married, they could make them a present. Or if a barn burned down in town, they could go help their neighbors build a new one. This is the opposite of what we have today. So these 24/7 streams of disaster around the world, these trigger our stress response as if we're in physical danger, but they don't give us any place to act to create safety. So if you wake up in the morning and you just start scrolling through your feeds or you start watching the news, you're basically giving other people the power over your adrenaline glands. I do not recommend starting the day off with the news. Instead, sit back for a second and think, what do you want the tone of your day to be? For me, I want it to be upbeat, calm, self-assured, peaceful, and powerful. Now, what kind of media does that for you? For me, it's prayer and scripture study first thing in the morning. For you, it may be meditation, journaling, uplifting music. But the important thing is that the first thing you do is something you choose. So I don't just bury my head in the sand when it comes to the news. I choose to check a couple of straightforward news stations once or twice a day, but I don't do it first thing in the morning. I also choose to focus more of my time on areas that I can take action on instead of on areas that are out of my control. The stress response is supposed to help you. It's about performance and taking action, but it's also supposed to be this short-term reaction. So it's healthy for bursts of speed, but it becomes unhealthy when it's chronic and when that stress remains unresolved. So if you take the Little House on the Prairie story, they worried, they didn't sleep, they took action, they did what they could to save the corn, and some plants lived and some plants died, but then they relaxed. Our body has a natural balancing reaction to the stress response. This is called the parasympathetic response, but most of us don't know how to turn it on. So you can choose to turn on this parasympathetic response through grounding exercises or breathing exercises, which I'm going to talk about later. But the most natural way to resolve the stress response is to simply complete a task. So if you feel worried about an assignment and then you turn it in, you feel that stress go away. And this is one of the reasons why coping skills can only go so far in helping anxiety, because anxiety is best resolved by doing one of two things: either taking action to resolve the problem or threat or whatever it is, or practicing active acceptance, so letting go of things that you can't change. But in our virtual world, even when we do complete a task or we resolve a problem, it can be hard to see the results. So my next tip is that you find a way to acknowledge when you can set down a task. You make it concrete. So for me, I really like checklists. I'll even, like if I complete a task and it wasn't on my checklist, I'll write it on my checklist and then I'll check it off so that I can feel that sense of completion. Now, there are lots of ways to do this, but find some way to mark off or to acknowledge when you've completed a task. Mike Boyd just made a really interesting machine that does this, or Simone Geertz, I wish I knew how to say her name right. They also have some interesting ways to kind of mark off when they've completed something. So I encourage you to find some way to give yourself some physical, tangible way to celebrate your success. Now, this can be really hard to do with long-running stress or long-term projects, but you can learn skills and practice them to turn off the stress. One skill that I learned from Michael Barrett, who was the director of the Center for Change, this is an eating disorder treatment program, is to every day when I leave work, to make a conscious practice of setting that work aside. So for me, I just say a little prayer about my clients. I say, Lord, I've done the best I can. I'm leaving them in your hands. Now, there is a lot of different ways to do this, but the basic idea is choosing when to carry something mentally heavy and when to set it down. So this could be as simple as turning off notifications on your phone or setting boundaries at work about when they can and when they can't contact you. When your job is mostly mental or mostly emotional or virtual, I also really find it helpful to choose something manual to complete. It can be really nice and relieving to see physical progress on a task. So this could look like cleaning something, mowing the lawn, fixing something physical. There's just something about physical tasks and completion that seem to click that switch in the brain. It triggers that parasympathetic response in our brain that says, okay, you're all right, you're safe now. And it turns off that stress response. Now, managing anxiety is about being intentional and in control instead of reactionary. So I have this picture in my head of me as a little kid coming home from playing at a friend's house. It's evening, it's starting to get dark, and I grew up in a super safe town. But when it started to get dark and I was walking home, you know how it feels like there's that tingle in the back of your neck, and maybe you wonder if there's something behind you in the dark. Now, of course, in every single situation, there was nothing back there. But if you start running, then you get more scared, and you get more and more scared the faster you run. And then you get through the door and you slam the door, whatever, you look out the window and there was nothing behind you. Now that is how I visualize daily low-level stress and anxiety. It's like you start to feel that tingle in the back of your neck and your impulse is to run. So if you're at work and you start to feel a little bit stressed, you try to work harder, or you try to work faster, and you try to get more things done. But that doesn't make you more effective. I have the tendency to try to fill every waking moment with busyness, checking your email or just keeping busy all the time by always staring at your phone. So just like me as a little kid, we perpetuate anxiety when we run from it, when we run from ghosts. So instead of running, stop, slow down, turn around and look around you, and you'll see that there's nothing there. So what does this look like in my day-to-day routine? This looks like taking the time to breathe, taking the time to slow down, to do something calming or to do something grounding. This is how you regulate your nervous system throughout the day. You may feel like you're getting more done by just going faster, but you'll be a lot more effective and less stressed out if you take a minute every hour or so to just clarify and to breathe and to slow down. Our brain is not very good at multitasking. That can trigger that sympathetic, that fight, flight, freeze response. So another way to help strengthen your parasympathetic response is to monotask. So our brain gets super overwhelmed by multitasking, basically interprets too much stimulation as being unresolved threats. So close those tabs, do one thing at a time, and then just, one of the things that I do throughout the day that helps me calm down is to just notice where you are. So just notice right now that you are watching this video. Now, I promised that I wouldn't tell you to meditate, but mindfulness is different. It's just slowing down and noticing the present moment, noticing that you are doing what you are doing. And then you can move on and get back to, your work or whatever. So another essential skill to manage anxiety for your daily routine is to do what I call big picture, small picture. So stress is not the problem. Chronic unresolved stress is the problem. This is the problem of the brain not knowing how to sort and manage all the stimulation and all the triggers and all the threats that come at it. And when we feel too many things coming at us, our brain interprets that as if we're being attacked, as if we're in danger. If you've got so many things that feel urgent, but you can't do them all, your brain can go into shutdown mode. So what do we do with this, right? No one has the time to do everything they want or need to do. So how do I manage this? I personally take the time to intentionally sort out and choose what I'm going to work on, what are my priorities, and what I can let go of. And this, I really believe, can help clear up that chronic unresolved stress. So for me, I don't know whether it's anxiety or whether it's ADD, but I constantly feel like my brain is overflowing with ideas and tasks and to-do lists. And then on top of that, there's the screaming children. So the way that I manage this is I'm constantly throughout the day writing down my to-do lists. So I'll write down a list of everything on my mind, and then I'll just choose one or two things, clarify what is most important, what are my priorities, and then I just get to work on a couple of them. And that helps me manage my stress and anxiety. So for some people, clarifying looks like journaling. And this can really help with anxiety because it helps your brain sort through the confusing mess and to get clarity and then to get going again. Another thing you can do, like I do, is these priority or to-do lists, but then just make sure to highlight only the few that you're going to work on, or journal the journaling skill of a brain dump, or journaling about your locus of control. Each of these things can help you, clarify and manage your stress throughout the day. Now, I'm going to jump ahead here to sleep. You would think going to sleep would be my last daily routine, but sleep is really important. So to be able to sort through all these tasks, you really need the executive functioning part of your brain to be working. And for that part of your brain to work well, you need to get enough sleep. So when your mind is rested, it can better manage all that excess stimulation and it can resolve anxiety when it comes up. But I know it can be hard to sleep when you're anxious. I have a hard time sleeping sometimes. So if you're not getting enough sleep or you're having a hard time sleeping, I would say just choose one small step you can take to sleep better. Now, in order to manage anxiety, another skill that I've had to learn was to get a little bit better at saying no. So resolving anxiety is about regaining self-control. So if you want to resolve anxiety, you may have to say no to the occasional party so that you get enough sleep, so that you don't need coffee in the morning, so that you're not stressed out and anxious throughout the day. Choosing a sustainable path instead of a frantic one requires a careful sorting of priorities in your life. So when we consciously choose to not overload our brain, it can handle these tasks with more composure. So this is something I have to work on all the time, is just saying no to a lot of things that I want to do, but I know are not going to be helpful for me. Now, next one I want to talk about is getting time in nature. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but there is a bunch of research that nature is really good for anxiety, and I personally love it. So I'm going to encourage you to try to get some nature into your day-to-day life. I am blessed to live in an area where I can get out in nature every day, but you can get a dose of nature even if you're trapped in the city. So go for a walk, look at the sky, water a plant, keep a fish, visit a park, or even just watching a documentary or looking at pictures of nature can be really soothing for your brain. So I'm going to encourage you to make nature a part of your daily routine. The last part of my daily habits that I use to reduce stress and anxiety is I make sure that my day is not too full. I make sure that I turn off at some point during the day. So take time to wind down in the evening so that you have time to get ready to go to sleep and get a good night's rest and wake up ready to take care of yourself. So for me, my wind down routine looks like turning off my phone, taking a hot bath, reading some random book. And even though I'm super busy with 3 little kids and a job and a business, I make it a priority to get a few minutes of peace most nights. So comment below, what are you going to do for your wind down routine? What helps you manage your day-to-day stress levels? When you take the time to resolve problems and to work with your brilliant and ancient brain, you really can learn to reduce anxiety and to get a lot of things done. Okay, that's it. I hope you find this helpful. Thank you for watching and take care.